Welcome back to the Let's Talk Vibes podcast, where we speak soul contracts, illuminating the path to higher understanding. I'm your host, Lauren.
And I'm Yana. And today we are going to take a deep dive with somebody who is just so magical. I would like to introduce an embodied, realized evolution of self, a divine safe space facilitator, a clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, a clear soul channel, interdimensional communicator, transcendence healing artist, biofield energy alchemist, drumming, dancing lover of earth life, Starlight Nectar D'Amour. Hello.
Welcome.
Hello, ladies. It's my pleasure to be joining you today for this podcast.
Thank you so much. Listen, you are so magical to me, and I'm just so happy to be able to share you and who you are and your story with the world. And then also for Lauren who does not know your chart, who knows nothing about you, to have the opportunity to pick up on what does your life represent, how does it show up, and how the energies play in that.
Yeah. I mean, already I'm definitely having some guesses. That was quite the introduction. I'm like so excited. Yana and Starlight, you know each other. You have such an incredible how you met story. And I am just so excited to get to know you here today. Why don't y'all tell everyone how it is that you did meet each other? It's so incredible.
Okay, this is a great story.
It is. It's fabulous.
Okay, so my mother, it was last year, 2023, and my mom calls me randomly one day and she goes, Esther Hicks is coming in town. We've got to go. And I'm like, okay, but I'm only going if I get on stage. That was the joke, right? So we get there. She had hurt her knee. So what they did was they pushed us all the way to the front because the way the shows work is first come, first serve. You just find a seat. You're in a sea of 2,000 chairs and you're just hoping you're there early enough to get a chair, right? Right in front. So we get there. They put us, because of my mom's knee, they put us on like the fourth row or something like that. And there was this empty seat next to me, actually two, that people were just not filling up. Everything was filled up except these chairs, which obviously now we know. All of a sudden, this beautiful woman comes over and she says, are these seats taken? I'm like, no. I think we may have talked for like a split second, about our excitement. And now we're like at the last segment, and Esther Hicks, what she does is she's like, who has a question? And you raise your hand, and she picks from the sea of people. And she kind of looks over and she points at me, and I was like, no way. Long story short, I did get my 5-10 minutes up there with her and Abraham. And when I came back, my mother, of course, was so excited. She had recorded some of it. And I sit down in my chair, and Starlight, I'm going to paraphrase, but you said something like, now again, we had spoken this much, barely nothing. And you said something like, that was so beautiful. And that was for our entire row. It was something so magical where I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to need this woman in my life. She's going to be present. Something is going on and happening here. I don't know how or when, but it's going to happen. And that's really how it started. Isn't that crazy?
No, not in my world.
That's the universe,
In your world,
baby.
and actually, I probably didn't say row. I probably said world.
Oh,
Mm,
wow.
listen, that probably is accurate.
Yes. Okay, so my experience of going to see Esther Hicks, I was so excited. I'd wanted to see her for years, and I was always booked and busy when she was coming to town. So I couldn't book my tickets. I didn't book the show, and for years and years. And then finally, I thought, she should be coming around now. And I looked, and she was, and they still had tickets available. So I was really excited, super amped, and I got there so early. And I thought I put something down on the seat because I got there really early.
I didn't know that.
That's what I thought. Yeah. Because there was a woman sitting kind of behind me, kitty corner, and I said, I'm just going to put something down here. Um, that's what I recall.
In the same row?
In the same row that you were in, yeah.
Oh my God, that's
But
interesting.
you weren't
Listen,
there yet. You weren't there yet.
yeah, because we got there literally right before like the event was beginning.
No,
We
I
were
was
late.
there. an hour or so early. I wanted to
That's
be towards the front.
well, it worked out anyway.
It did. It was perfect.
Yes. And now here we are.
Here we are.
Okay,
Wow.
so why don't we get into what makes Starlight D'Amour so magical? Like, tell us about you and how you grew up and your childhood and kind of what led you to where you are today.
Wow. Well, we might need a few weeks to tell you all the amazing details, but I'll summarize. So I was born in the Chicago area and to a family. I'm the oldest of five, three
Mhm.
girls. Oh my gosh, not three girls, three boys and two girls. Um, and it was a very interesting life growing up in the 60s. And um, there were some magical things about my upbringing and some not so magical things about my upbringing, just like all of us.
Mm,
And um, I didn't realize some of the not so magical things until I was in almost 30.
mm,
And that was when my life changed. But before we go there, um, went to school, went to church, didn't like church. I liked it when it was Bible study, but when I got older, I didn't make sense to me. I was confirmed in the Lutheran faith, and I didn't understand it. And I'm like, well, Mom, why are you making me do this? I don't, I, I don't like the stories he's telling me, the pastor, and he's sick of my questions. And she said, well, that's just what you do. And it turns out she didn't have any of the other kids do it because I gave her such a hard time about it. But and then other things started to arise as a teenager. I'm rebellious. I'm a free spirit. I like to do things the way I like to do them. And as the oldest, I put my foot down. I started taking dance classes a little bit before the church thing, and with dancing. Um, the first place I took lessons, they decided to tell my mom, she's really good, take her somewhere else. So then
mm,
my mom took me to a better studio. And then from there, New York City Ballet was scouting and they said, who's that? It was my first day in class. I had never taken ballet in my life. So I didn't
What?
really have the right postures, and, and the studio owner said, oh, she's brand new. She just got here. And they said, she's going to go somewhere. Keep your eyes on.
Mm.
And so I became a professional dancer. I cheered for the Chicago Bears. Um, so I was dancing in that, and I was on the dance squad, and we performed in different places, which was really fun. And Miss Chicago came after that. So I was a beauty queen, but I was always a tomboy, so it was kind of a weird thing for me. uh, I started modeling when I was 12. Actually, we're going back and forth here. Um, my grandmother said, the kids are so beautiful. You should take them to an agency. And there's an audition going on for State Street People Week down at Goldblatt's, back in the day. And so two of us were chosen. And then we were registered with an agency. So that's kind of what opened me up into um, um, enter- entertainment, dancing, eventually choreography, modeling. I went to Europe and Asia and modeled there and danced, performed, and it was a really fun life until
wow. I'm already
until,
like, wow.
until my
I
early
already I
30s.
already saw you writing down notes, Lauren. And
Yeah,
it's
I
funny
did.
because there were certain like buzzwords that Starlight was saying, and in my mind, it triggered the energy. And then I saw
Yeah.
your eyes going down, and I'm like, oh, she's got that one. She's got
Oh,
it.
oh, you know what? I forgot something because this is monumental. I remember wanting to change my name at about 14. I just didn't like my name. Maybe it was earlier than that. Maybe it was 12. Maybe I was 12. Was I 12? I think it was 12. And my mom said, "You can't do that. You can't do it until you're 18." And I said, "18? I have to wait till I'm 18?" She said, "Yes, you have to wait till you're 18." Well, when I was 18, I was already modeling and I had my name,
Mm,
which is different from what it is now. I had my name on my model cards, which is your calling card, like your business card, has your headshot and your name on there, which was Deborah Hopkins. But when I was younger, it was Debbie Hopkins with an
wow.
I, Debbi Hopkins, and I had to keep it, but I really wanted to change it, and so because my profession and the things that I was doing already had my name all over it, I kept it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which in the work that we do in the soul contract work, it's like on a soul level, your soul's like, no, 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 you still have some work to do here with this name, with this sound frequency, with these energies. And before you start bringing in more, before you change, before any of that, let's work more on that. Right, Lauren? Isn't that like what you get with that?
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, sometimes you don't always know when is it a plan that's not meant to happen yet, and when did life really get on the way and caused a delay. Those are the things that we don't always know. We don't always know.
Exactly.
Okay, this takes me back to when I was on stage with Esther Hicks and Abraham. Remember the question I asked? It was something about I'm trying to get something going, but I feel stuck. I feel like I want that change. I want it to come in, but I don't know what's happening. Why does it feel like procrastination? Why does it feel like it's just stuck? And the answer she gave was it's not the right time yet. Of course, it was a much longer response than that, but that was it. So to me, like I connect that with it wasn't Starlight's time to leave Debbie behind and onto something else. It was time to still sit in that. But what I'd like for you to share is your the first time you ever meditated, because that story is amazing.
Okay. So, um,
And what led to the meditation.
right. So, I decided right before I turned 30, I decided I wanted to go to college and I just wanted to take a semester. And the college that I knew I wanted to go to was Columbia College here in Chicago, which is an arts college. And I did
Mm.
not know what subject matter I wanted to study. I wasn't sure as far as what art form because it's in me and I'm like, well, what do I want? I already have so much, as far as art, an artistic feel in my bones. And my mom was an artist and my grandfather was a singer and my grandmother was a painter and a sculptor and so we have art in our family and so I decided at the beginning of summer or it was July or something that I wanted to go so there wasn't much to choose from so I decided to take a couple writing classes a poetry writing workshop and creative writing and um, and at the end of uh, the semester, the creative writing teacher handed me back my projects, and she looked into me and she said, "What did that monster do to you?" And and I was looking at her like, "Did I hear her right? Like, what did she say?" And I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." And she just kind of like looked down and shuffled other papers and I'm like, okay, it's time for me to turn around and walk away from her and that just sat with me and so I went back and I read everything that I had all the poetry that I wrote and the creative writing and I'm like, I don't know what she's talking about. Well, after that semester ended, I was busy. I was in busy season. I was performing and doing other jobs and gigs and things like that. So when I wasn't busy, when I had downtime, I felt this intense pressure on me, just intense. Like, what is this pressure?
Mm.
I can't take this pressure. And it just kept going for months and months. And finally, after about 6 months, I'm like, all right, what do I do? Go see a therapist? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to see a therapist. I'm going to be seeing the therapist forever. I don't want to see a therapist forever. And if I'm feeling the pressure, I'm the one who has the answer. So I've got to figure this out. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And then I remembered a show from the 70s called Kung Fu and David Carradine was the lead, and he played a character that was kind of like a monk, and he had this old man, this blind, white-haired old man that was his teacher, his master teacher, and his master teacher had a very sweet nickname for him and called him Grasshopper. Yes, Grasshopper.
Mm.
You go out and you find your lessons, and you come back and you tell me. And so this is a show I've never heard of. I've never seen anything like that. I was 17 when the show came out, by the way. So um, I thought it was fascinating. Well, in this moment of feeling that pressure, I thought, well, maybe I can do what he did. Maybe I can sit because they showed him sitting at the end of his journey, and then he recounted all the things that happened behind him on the screen, like different scenes, and then he
Yeah.
would say this profound statement about his lessons to the master teacher, and say, "Oh yes, very good indeed, very good, grasshopper, yes," and pat him on the shoulder or something. And so I thought, well, I guess I need to just sit. I need to sit and be quiet, and maybe I'll get my own answers, and I'll do that first. And if I don't get anything through trial and error, then maybe I'll see a therapist. So the first day, I was busy. So I'd set my alarm for 20 minutes. I got up early so I could set the alarm for 20 minutes. And before
Mhm.
the alarm went off, something happened the first time. And so my question was, what is this pressure, right? What is causing this pressure? Because I didn't know. I didn't know what was causing it. And and something happened before the alarm went off. And my hands were on my knees, the way that everybody knows how to meditate. Oh, almost everybody knows what it is. But
Yeah.
in 2000, what was it, 1991 ish, there wasn't meditation all around like it is now. There weren't
Mm-hmm.
yoga centers. It just wasn't available. So that's why this show had made such an impact on me, because clearly it's meant for all of us, right?
Right.
Because here we are.
Yep.
And so my hands fell off my knees and they slowly moved behind my back. And then the alarm went off. I'm like, what the heck? And I was witnessing my body. I didn't stop it. I just allowed my body to do what it did. The hands fell off at the same time in unison. I didn't move them. I'm like, okay, this is really weird. So I decided the next day I'd do it again. So I did it, and it happened again for 8 days. I kept setting the alarm, but the same exact thing happened. And on the eighth day, I had a little extra time. So when that happened, I said, can you show me something else? So this, I don't understand what this is. Can you show me something else? So because I asked a different question other than what's this pressure, I got something instantly, and it was a vision. Now, it wasn't a memory. It wasn't a thought. It wasn't an idea. It was something that came inside me. It like arose inside me. And by the way, I was meditating with my eyes open all those days. For some reason, I just stared
Mm.
at a white wall. I stared at a white wall. I'm like, I don't think it matters if it's black or white. It's just blank. Sorry, stared at a white wall. Excuse me. And so when I was given the vision, and I saw a vision, and it was my dad sitting behind the newspaper really quick, and I was looking through my playpen. So it was young, but I didn't know if it was real. I'm like, okay, well, I'm seeing that, and it's not telling me anything. Yeah, I know that guy over there, and I recognize the wallpaper. I recognize it all, right? And it was interesting though, because the perspective was, he looked really young. So I hadn't thought of that in a really long time. So it was interesting to see that. But I said, all right, well, that's not showing me anything. Can you show me something else? And it's telepathically. I'm just like saying it in my mind. I'm not speaking it out loud. And so, boom, I got another vision. Now I'm looking down in my little playpen. Now my body was in a precarious position. And can you think about where my hands might be?
Behind your back.
Uh huh. And so my
Wow.
heart started racing. My heart's racing. My heart's racing. My heart's racing. I'm like, body, you don't know if that's true. You don't know if that's true. So I calmed my heart down. And then I asked another question. I said, how'd the body get like that? And I was shown some more things. And I'm like, all right, I'm taking myself out of this meditation. I called my mom and I asked her, and she verified what happens. And, but, begrudgingly, she's like, what are you doing? And I've been meditating. Oh, the devil's going to tell you lies. And I'm like, really, mom? I'm asking you an honest question. Like, that's the devil, you know? And, but it wasn't a funny thing. I mean, I was like, really, like, did this really happen to me? And at the
Yeah.
time, and then she said, well, I must have told you when you were in high school, because I went through some things. And I said, no, I would remember that. And then she's like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, what? So then I decided a few days after that my life had to change. I mean, there's no way my life could be the same after that. There's no way. So I decided to devote myself to understanding why people could be so cruel, and what I could do with my life that would help people understand that question.
That's beautiful.
Wow. Wow. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
What a story.
Okay. So now you've got this beautiful gift of being able to meditate. You're getting answers. What was the next step that, because now you're uncovering lots of memories that you had from a childhood.
Right.
So what was it like next? Okay, now you're like, I'm gonna devote my life to changing, to being better, to resolving this, and then what?
Ah. And then what is like right now? So and then what, just it keeps unfolding. Because when you make a
Yeah.
choice like that, when whoever you are, when you make a devoted choice like that and you make a statement, anything, it could be anything in any moment in your life. I said, I devote my, be careful what you wish for. You know, all the teachers started showing up, all the teachers, life was giving me a training, another training, another training, another training. And I was in some really interesting, very bizarre experiences. And it's worthy a documentary because, you know, I've been holding it back. Some of my clients that I work with now, they get to hear the stories, but, you know, we don't have time for all of them. But every single step, every single stone, every single step, every single person I met, um, book I read, movie, song, I got information. I realized I was clairvoyant, clairaudient, and clairsentient in that one instant that happened. But I didn't know what that was. So my life was showing me how to use those skills. So the teachers were showing up so I could understand how to use them and what the benefits of having them are, and um, and that everyone has them laying dormant in them. It's whether or not you actually choose to exercise them or not. And the inner world is a completely different world than the outside world that we've learned and we're accustomed to living in. And once you have a foot in both worlds and you're standing in the center, we're coming to the name now, Starlight Nectar D'Amour. Starlight is the light, the vibration of illumination that we all are. Love, D'Amour is my last name, of love, is the experience of light in the body, and nectar is that. The nectar is the feeling of light and love in your body. You're aware and you're walking on that path each and every day. And yes, life will toss you around like a hot potato, and you cool off and you keep going. And you learn along the way through rites of passage, and sometimes it's really hard, and life is like that until we realize it doesn't have to be.
Mm-hmm. Now tell us the beautiful story of how you actually came about with the name Starlight. Because I want to say this real quickly. In our work, we always talk about how the name isn't just some random name that someone thinks of. It's like
No,
this intuitive thing. It's this thing that happens. It's energetic. It comes from such a higher level than just earth plane randomness. It is divine. And the way you got your name is, again, so magical.
it is magical. And I have to say, something happened before that name even came, and that was in my 30s when I was doing satsang with this really interesting fellow that I had met at some kind of a meditation party kind of a thing. It was Osho related, for those of you that know about Osho. And we got together and we would stare into each other's eyes and go into this really deep, deep meditation. And he said, "You are not Debbie Hopkins." I said, "I know, and I've known for a long time." He said, "It's time for you to change your name." And I said, "Well, I've known that, but I don't know what name is and what the name is, or what I would like, or what it's supposed to be." And he said, "Well, I'm going to go home and I'll meditate on it, and I'll do some research, and I'll come by with the next time we meet. I'll bring a few names that I found that kind of might feel like you, and we'll just check it out and see if one of them works." So he brought 3 names. And one of them I knew for sure was not. One of them was kind of maybe, and one was a little bit stronger than the others. I didn't like any of them really, but so I said the one that was the strongest. I said, "I am," and said it. And this booming voice from I don't know where filled up the whole room and said, "You are not that. You are Pundita."
Wow. Oh
And I
my
said to
God.
him, I said, "I am Pundita."
That's
Oh
amazing.
my gosh. But it turns out that Pundita actually, we did some research to try and find out what its origin was, and it actually means one who is realized.
Wow.
Oh.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
I know. But then
What
there's
is
a
this
story.
life you have lived? My
I'm telling
goodness.
you, and then I moved to Colombia and I lived there, and I'm not going to tell you all the story and everything, but I chose not to keep that name because, well, my boyfriend at the time in Colombia, he named our dog that, and I'm like, you can't have a dog and a girlfriend with the same name. And I'm like, so let's give it to Pundita. She can have the name, and I will just stick with Deborah Hopkins for right now. And that was wow. That was. And by the way, I only use that name in certain circles, like in my spiritual circles when I get together with
Mm.
people, and they would call me Debbie Pundita. So,
Yeah.
so that was a little thing, like with the name change, yeah, because, and that felt really good. But I mean, the name itself, it wasn't necessarily the name; it was the meaning of the name that felt good to me
Right.
because I didn't feel, Deborah Hopkins just didn't feel like me, even though I know Deborah means bee, and bees aerodynamically shouldn't be able to fly because the size of its wings is so much smaller than its body capacity. So I saw it as a miracle. And they also cultivate, they make the food that is non perishable and we can eat it forever. Like, who makes that? A little creature makes it. It doesn't even come from the earth. I mean, it comes from the earth because of the pollen and what have you. But that's amazing. And honey, I mean, and honey and propolis and all of that. And they're amazing architects. I mean, bees are incredible. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'm industrious on some level. I'm not an architect, but I'd like to change the world. So maybe there's something I could do to participate in that. So I actually put a tattoo. I have a little bee on my back. So I did put that on
Ah.
me because
Mm.
I knew that that was my soul, a bee. And
Mm.
every time I do a session or anything like that, I have bee pollen and I share it with them and we honor the bees and we eat a little bit of bee pollen, then we start our session. Always,
I love
always,
that.
because we
Okay.
need the bees. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, don't they say that if bees went extinct, like population would start, like everything would go wrong. It'd be like
We need it for
massive
our food.
destruction. Yeah,
Yeah.
for everything.
all of
So,
the
Yeah.
greens, our flowers, our fruits, our vegetables, everything needs a bee or something that's, like a butterfly or something that has that high frequency or a hummingbird.
right.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
And it's
So let's,
meditative to watch them too. Speaking of
yes.
the
Right.
meditation.
Oh my gosh. When I lived in Colombia, oh my gosh, it was so amazing to see all the bees, all the bees. I'd sit in the middle of the field because I worked on a farm and did my sessions on the weekends. And I would just sit there in awe and I'd watch them and I'd listen and I'd watch and I'd listen. But anyway, you wanted to go back to Starlight Nectar D'Amour and how that came about, right?
Yes.
Yes. The
Okay.
story is amazing.
I know. So I was just starting to get involved with events. And a friend of mine that had a company said, would you want to collaborate on creating this next retreat that we're working on? I said, I would love to. And I said, but it has to be organic and all natural. I said, if you're going to pull in alcohol or anything else, I said, I'm not all about it. I said, so if it's a clean event, then I am all about it. He said, okay, that's what we'll do then. And we figured out a great theme. And so I taught a movement meditation and a couple things, and I did my sessions. And anyway, so I was there. It was in Michigan, and this young man walked into the room in registration, and he saw me sitting on the floor. I was making posters to put up around so people could find their way. Everybody got there late. Like my wallet was stolen that day. Some people crashed their car, and like we were coming from Chicago, by the way, and most of us. And anyway, it got started late. Some things just happen like that. So, but it went off with a bang, and everybody was really happy and loved it. But this guy saw me, and I found out later, after I had met him, that he heard. Because we got together, we had a conversation. It was really kismet, and I'm like, why do I feel like I know this guy? I feel like I know him, like it's kindred, something, something. And so he heard the words when he saw me, there's your wife, Starlight Nectar.
Wow. What? Oh my God.
Yes. So, and the way that that unfolded was so very interesting. I had found a book, books fall off the shelf and land at my feet. I mean, they haven't for a really long time, but when I was first seeking and looking and wanting, I was just I was so hungry for more knowledge about spirit and healing and anything I could get my hands on about anything that was metaphysical, classes, teachers, healers that were coming and breezing through town, authors that were speaking about their books that I had already read. I mean, I was just absorbing it all. And I had a voracious appetite to figure out what the heck I was supposed to be doing, because I knew I was supposed to be in the healing arts, but I didn't know what. So at the beginning. So going back, anyway, the reason I brought that up is because this particular book that fell off the shelf is called The Invitation. It's a poem by a woman named Oriah Mountain Dreamer. And this particular human being that became my husband sent me that poem. And here's the thing, when I read the poem, I knew that if someone gave me that poem, it would be my husband.
Oh my
Mm.
God.
14 years later, he gave me the poem.
This
Lauren's
is like
like,
serendipity. This is that
right.
movie, which I love that movie from before Spiritual Awakening. And I'm just like, this is that
So
movie. This is that
we're
movie.
not married anymore, I have to say, but it's an amazing love story. And I believe at this time, oh, and what I told him, the first day I went to visit him, he lived in Madison, Wisconsin. When the first day I went to visit him, um, his phone was sitting in the car between us, and he was showing me a day in the life of his life, right? And I'm like, why don't you show me around? What's Madison? And I picked up the phone, and it said Starlight on there. And I'm like, what's Starlight? Because I was the last person he called. And I saw my phone number. And he said, oh, well, remember when we were at that retreat where we met? I said, yeah. He said, well, I was looking for my spirit name, but I didn't get mine. I got yours. He didn't tell me the marriage part until later.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yet.
Until later. So when he did tell me, I said, you know what? If we get married, I'll change my name legally to Starlight Nectar D'Amour. I said, that is who I am. I know it is. And it wasn't because necessarily, it was because it was his name. I mean, at the time, yes, it was. But what I realized about that name was that it's love. And I had already been signing my Light and Love. And when I was in Colombia, when I lived with my boyfriend down there, we actually painted on our bedroom wall love in English and amor in Spanish. So I had that already in my field. Do you know what I'm saying? And then it became my name. So it's not because it became it, it's because it always has been it. And so that brought me to understanding that all of us human beings, as the deeper I started diving, I dove into this amazing life as Starlight Nectar D'Amour, but even Deborah Jean Hopkins, was that we are light. We are light. That's what illumines us. That is what is inside us. We are not our bodies. We are light. And that light is felt when we are in high consciousness, in high heart frequency. And that is love. That is unconditional, uncensored love.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know that Starlight D'Amour is that, and the nectar is the experience of it. It's walking it, talking it, being it. And I know that it is possible for every single human being. I don't care what your path has been. If it's not this lifetime, it will be another one. You will get it and you will understand it. If it's the last breath in this lifetime or the first breath in the next one, you will know.
Oh, yeah.
It's so interesting because we all have had love in our names, right? Because Yana's optimized name has love. And I have recently changed my name again, and that's where the Lauren Joy Rose is. But before, I was trying out Love Rose Jaffe O'Malley. And I feel like there's still something to the love, and it's kind of like taking a backseat to now. But I'm like, I know our friend Janelle, who was our first guest on this podcast, she and I keep saying it's going to come back. We don't know when, we don't know how.
Right.
It's going to come back somehow. So I'm just like, we're all in that love frequency, which, speaking of, we got to start talking about some of these numbers, because I'm like, I have
Okay,
my
wait.
list, I have my notes.
Wait, before we do that,
Okay.
there's one more story I want Starlight to share. And it's going to throw in just a little bonus. And any practitioner that's listening, anybody who's following along and understanding the energies, there's going to be a word that will be shared that you're going to be like, oh, yeah, I know exactly what this is. Okay. So, Starlight, you had shared with me a story about somebody who you met a few times and you sat in front of her. Okay. So, just share the story. This will be a little bonus for everybody who understands that you're going to hear the word and you're going to know immediately.
Oh my God, I feel like the pressure is on.
Well, first of all, I just want to share with you the experience that's running through my body right now. So I have tingles, my nose is like vibrating, my kneecaps, my ankles, I feel the blood. I feel every cell in my body like it's illumined, like it's responding to this conversation, to the subject matter,
Oh,
to this woman that I'm about to
Mm,
mention, and
oh.
um, who I have had the pleasure of meeting, and how that happened. Do you want me to tell the story of how I found it? How I found her?
yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I had hmm. So a client of mine decided he wanted to book me for an event in China. And so I went to China. I mean, I took the booking, and I said, but I can only take it under if you allow me to if you fly me through Hyderabad on the way back, and India. And I said, I have a wedding I need to go to, and it doesn't make sense to fly back to Chicago and get back over there because it's 2 days after. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I said, I'll pay the difference in the airfare, which is amazing. And he fell for it. He's like, great, let's do it. And um, I'm not going to tell you all the details, but let's just say I contracted some kind of a being while I was there. While I was in China first, and then I went to India, and it was speaking through me and dancing through me. Do you want to know all those details? I don't know if we have time for that.
No, no, no. It's important that you state it, okay?
Okay,
That you pick something up and
I picked
then
something up. Right. Okay. Thank you for honing it.
I'm on
Bring
tender hooks right now.
it's a really incredible story. I'm telling you, but it could take a half an hour. So, because there's so many juicy details, the nectar of life. So,
God, I can't. Get it,
Oh my
girlfriend, get
God.
it.
okay. Uh, so this thing appeared in me, and it was just really so strange. It sounded like The Exorcist, if you saw that movie. So okay, so Kung Fu is one movie that influenced me, and The Exorcist was kind of guiding me to try and get something out of me. So that says something about TV now, maybe pros and cons of certain shows, but how you can use them later, you never know. So the influence. So I tried to get it out of me myself. I'm like, oh my God, something's in there. Like it took over my hand. I was writing, and first it started writing, and then it started speaking, and then it was moving, and I'm like, oh no. So I tried to throw up, right? Because that's what they did in the movie and the show, and that didn't work. And then I drew a bath, and that didn't work, and thought I could scream it into the vibration. The vibration. I don't know anything about any of these things yet, right? I didn't know any of it. I'm like, well, all I have is the show. To like guide me, and I'm in China, and we didn't have the cell phones that we have now because I was in my 30s. So and who was I going to call? Who?
Yeah.
Who? Nobody in my life that I knew yet.
Right.
Right? I mean, a physical person. So I'm like, okay, and I have this bead. Maybe I could yell, tell it to go in the bead, and I'll wear it, and it doesn't have to be in me, but it can be on me and just like hang out with me in my space. I'm like, maybe I can make a deal with it. I'm like trying to make a deal with a creature they can't see. Anyway, it was pretty bizarre. So long story longer, shorter. When I got back to Chicago, I was in a grocery store, and someone said, did you just get back from India? And I said, yeah. How do you know that? Well, you just have the energy of India all over you. And I'm like, okay, that's really weird. And then I was in a taxi, and like a day or two later, and the taxi driver's like, welcome to my taxi. I'm the only singing taxi driver in Chicago. I've got a list of songs for you to choose from. Why don't you choose one? And so a theme, a genre. So I pick metaphysics. I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. So he starts singing this beautiful song called Dove. And I'm crying, wailing in the back seat. Just sobbing, sobbing, sobbing. And he's, finished his song and he said, "Excuse me for noticing, madam, but are you okay?" "I'm not okay. I'm supposed to be a healer." And I'm like just going on and having my experience in his car. But he, was part of it. He was part of it. He helped me. He was one of the teachers. So he said,
Yeah.
"You're in luck." And he pulls out a business card and he hands it to me. And he said, "This guy takes apprentices. Give him a call." And I'm like, oh my gosh, the golden ticket. So I called the guy and I set up an appointment for a few days later. And I get into his office. It's a beautiful building, kitty corner from Whole Foods that is now moved doesn't matter where it is, but in Chicago. Excuse me. And so I'm like, okay, it's a nice building because, this guy just handed me a card. And yes, I made an appointment, but, you're a girl and you want to make sure you're safe, right?
Yeah.
So it was a beautiful building. And it was an old, refurbished, restored building. And I get up and get into his studio. And there's a desk and chairs. There's no art. There's no books. There's no paper. There's nothing. And I'm like, okay, I don't hear anything. There isn't a sign that says "be back in 5 minutes" or anything. I'm like, okay, well, I'll just sit here. And I went out and looked at the number again just to make sure I was in the right place, and it was. So I sat down, and then I saw a woman run out, and then this man opened the door, and he's with these really intense eyes, and he said, "Are you ready for your appointment?" And I'm like, "Yes." I have no idea what's going to go on. I'm like, I'm following the breadcrumbs, right? I'm following the breadcrumbs.
Yes.
And something had me look at the desk, and there was a book that was not there before. And it said, "Mother Mira Answers." And then he said, "And what is your name?" As I just glanced at the book and I saw it, right? And I saw it, and it was an Indian woman with a dot on her head, right? And I just came back from India, right? And the guy says, and then I'm crying in the taxi, and now I'm here. And then I see that before I go in on my appointment, right? And he said, "And what is your name?" And I'm like, I think he doesn't know my name. He should know who his next client is. And this name comes out of my mouth that is not mine. And he goes, "Of course you are. Come right in." And I don't know if you need to know what happened there, but what happened in that appointment. Oh, I guess I'll continue telling it. So anyway, I walk in there and I hold his hands, and he introduces me to this other woman that's in there. And he said, "She's my apprentice, so and so." And as soon as we lock hands, my whole body starts shaking and whoa and moving. And then he excuses her, and his eyes were, oh my, I'll never forget those eyes. Those eyes were so intense. And he said, "Lay down on the massage table, fully clothed, face up." He had his hand about this far away from my chest, and it felt like there was a saw cutting me in half right in my breastplate. And I'm like, ah! I'm hitting his hand, and he wasn't touching me. It felt like I was being, cut open. I'm like, "You're hurting me," kicking my feet. I almost fell off the massage table, and then I just went limp. And then I laid there for I don't know how long. And I said, "What was that?" And he
Oh my
walks over to
goodness.
the table, and he slowly pulls up his hand, and he shows me this line on his hand. And he goes, "Put your hand up here." He goes, "You see this line right here?" Whatever the line was, I don't remember which line it was. I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You see, you have that same line." And I said, "So?" He said, "You're the white female version of me, and you're meant to be doing this work." And I said, "I don't know what this work is, but thank you."
Wow. What a story. And yes, there was a key. If you know, you know.
But holy goodness gracious. So wait a second. I didn't even see, I just knew I needed to get that book that I saw on the desk that had Mother Mira on it. So I got the book and I read about it, and I'm like, "Where is she? I want to see her." And I'm like, "Oh, she's in Switzerland. I don't know when I'm going to get to Switzerland. How am I going to see her?" And I don't remember how long it was, but she ended up coming to Chicago, and I went to go see her, and there was magic in her eyes, absolute magic in her eyes. And then she came again. I want to say it was a year or two later, and I went to see her again, and magic again.
Hold
And the
on one
third
second.
time,
Hold on.
yeah.
Explain really quickly what that process is like. You get in
Okay.
the room.
It's called darshan. So darshan is like a blessing, and there's different avatars. Avatars are the gifted ones. They're the holy people. They're the ones that share their light and their healing abilities with people that sit in their presence. So some people, some of the avatars were chosen when they were younger, and someone realized that they had these powers. But now they do these tours and they stop in holy places like usually churches, and they come and many people come to sit in to see them. So the church or the venue fills up, and then there's assistants that take one row at a time, and people stand and they wait to
But
have
it's
their
but
turn.
it's all in complete silence. No
It's
one's
in complete
talking.
silence. Nobody's speaking. There's no music playing. It's complete silence. And one person at a time goes up. And in Mother Mira's case, um, you kneel down and you look into her eyes. And when she looks down, your time is done. And then you go back and you sit and you meditate or do whatever you're going to do sitting there, reflecting, watching, being in the wake of that energy of the gift that you just had, the transference of the blessing through her eyes.
Which really lasted what, 15 seconds? 30
The look
seconds?
itself was 30 seconds. Yeah, it was about 30 seconds approximately. Um, and um, this is so interesting that it came through again here because I'd seen her. So the first time, the second time, the third time when I went, I'm like, why am I here? I don't need to see her. I don't need anything from her. This first time I felt I didn't need anything from her. And I heard, Starlight, you are equal to her. There is no
Mm,
separation.
mhm.
I went, oh, well, do I need to go up there then? I'm like, do I go up there? And I knew in my heart of hearts, yes, you go up there with a different reverence, and you be with that one light that is in all beings, knowing that I'm not separate. And so I get to walk in that, and I get to bring that in my sessions too. Maybe not always
Wow.
through my eyes, but it's through the words, it's through my heart, it's through my being, it's the way I walk. And it pisses some people off. And I've learned how to gauge my radiance, like how big and how small. But small doesn't mean not powerful or yourself. It just means I know when to call the energy back so I'm not, um, bullying people with the light.
Mm-hmm.
And that took me a long time to figure out. A long time to figure out because it's not something you wave around like a like a flag of achievement.
Yeah.
It's there's no hierarchy, there's no judgment, there's no harm to any sentient being. So once you are realized, um, there's a certain responsibility that comes with that, and it's not for everybody because it is a game changer. It's a life changer. And relationships change, the ways we communicate, different things that I'm interested in. I have to watch the type of movies I go to, um, the books I read, music I listen to. Everything has shifted because it no longer serves a part of me of the low dense frequencies because I've learned to adapt, um, and become, I guess, a light walker.
Mm.
And there's pros and cons to that because just as light as you become and are realized, so too is the darkness. And
Mm,
so when the forgetting happens, because it does, when the forgetting happens, the shadow is really bright. And by bright, I mean it's really dark. And so if you don't have other people in your friends or family circles that can recognize that and remind you with certain subtle words, right, to call you back. This is why I'm doing the work, is to remind people that nothing is happening to you, everything's happening for you. Forgiveness is a
Mhm.
tool that is necessary for all of us to understand. It doesn't mean it's okay what the person has done. It's you understanding your role in it. And you're really forgiving yourself for forgetting that you could choose a different role.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
It could be perspective. Anyway, so back to Mother Mira. This is, she doesn't say anything. She just looks. So it isn't about doing, it's really being. And how we be is the best gift that we can give everyone, including ourselves in this world, because that gift has a resonance that carries beyond what we can see, way beyond what we can see, and beyond our lifetime, even. And these times are going to be challenging us always to remember that. Life
Mhm.
challenges us to remember that. And we came here to have a human experience, you know, to feel love and light in a body, to feel like feel, taste, smell, and touch everything. And free will is a really interesting gift, which could sometimes seem a curse.
Yes. Listen, thank you for giving us this beautiful view into your world, into the magic that you are. I think Lauren is probably chomping at the bit to share at least one number for sure.
Oh no, we are talking about all of these.
Many, yes,
We are
totally. Let's
going over
go.
all of
Let's
these
go.
because I have notes. I have notes. Do you want me to start from the top of my list, or do you want me to start with the from that last story, the jump out energy?
Whatever you want, girlfriend.
Well, I will say, because it's actually almost at the bottom of the list, and it wasn't, I didn't add it until we really started talking about adding the name love. And we were talking about love, and I was just like, oh, this number. And then this is where the Mother Mira comes in, is with the 13-4 energy. So what
Yes.
I want to know is, did it get, my theory is it was introduced with the new name. Was it in her name before?
Yes.
It was already there. Okay.
Mhm.
Because I think the reason that I added it onto my list later is because I really kept thinking 22-4. So where is the 22-4?
Okay. It's funny. She mentioned so much where she gave that energy. We do not
Yes.
have a 22-4 anywhere. I
How?
know.
How?
Listen,
Did
I
you look
know.
at everything? Did you look at the Mundita? Because it's there.
I
The energy is there.
I have them. I have them all. Now I will say there is just one. If we just do, hold on. Let me add. Let's see. Moment of truth. I don't know one
You're
else can
looking it
see
up
this.
now.
No, we got no 22-4. But listen, I know. I know.
I don't know how that's possible. Because here's all the things that feed to it, right? Which is where I'm like picking it up. Like it's all within. You're talking about that. That's so much the 22-4 energy. That's all within you. All you have to do is remember. That's coming up in your story so much. You just have to remember that you're like, I'm not gonna see, I'm just gonna meditate. I'm like 22-4. And then just when everything starts flowing into your life, everyone was showing up. I was like, that's the 4, bringing everything into your life, which can also be, again, 13-4 or a 4-4. But I was still thinking 32, 22-4. And then just at the end now, as you're talking about the connection and we're all connected and all of this, and I'm like, 22-4,
I know. I
I,
know.
how is it not there? I feel like you when you were like with steps eights, where are the eights? And I'm like, where is the
Yes, but I
22-4?
came prepared. I looked up all the versions of her names from start to finish, and it is not here.
Wow.
So go on to the next one, and I'm going to do one more thing, but keep going.
Okay. So this one is not necessarily as prominent per se, but I'm like, there's a 22, isn't there? Because of the dance and the movement and the wisdom. Is there a 22?
A 20-2?
Yes,
Yes.
20-2. Okay.
Yes.
In birth name?
In birth name.
Okay. Yeah, I was totally feeling that. I felt that one early on because also when people like leave their religions, which granted, that's not uncommon, but that's the first like thing for me. And then as soon as you start talking about the dance, I was like, oh, for sure. For sure.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that 20-2. It's all about they require this movement, right? But earlier
Yeah.
in life, maybe they experience like a rigid household, that rigid religious upbringing, right? Where you're like, my mom keeps sending me to this church and I don't know why. It's not my thing. Like I don't resonate with it. He's telling me lies. It just screams that 20-2 frequency where you're like, I want to break free from this. I want to explore. I want to move how I want to move. And I just want to go and be. So, yeah, Lauren picked up on it perfectly. That's just how it is. It screams and it's like, I can't be confined in this box. I need to be free.
Well, the very first number on the list, which is just so obvious throughout this entire story, is the 5-5. Just so open and psychic and magical and writing and speaking your truth and saying to your mom, this is not my name. Right? Like all of these things. I'm like,
My poor mother.
the 5-5, the 5-5
There is
is
a
in the birth
5-5.
name. Is it karmic?
It's not in the birth name, but
Okay.
it is in
In
the
the common
birth
use.
common name in
Yeah.
physical karma.
In karma. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Yep. That was making sense to me. Now, going back to earlier where Yana was saying, okay, you weren't done with the name and that's why I didn't change it. The reason I have a slightly different approach and where I totally believe for what Yana is saying, I'm like, I believe that can be true. But the reason I think there's another possibility is I see the disempowerment in your mom telling you no, that you were like, this is what's right for me, that you knew your truth and she came in and disempowered you and told you no. So that to me is the 9-9. So where is that?
The 9-9 actually doesn't come in until Pundita and Starlight, but that is
Okay.
also the 13-4, right? That mother wound.
Okay. And so you said 13-4 is actually from the birth name?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. What about 10-1? Because there can also be the disempowerment. So is that a name that was earlier in
Physical karma, birth name.
Did you say 10-1?
10-1?
It's because I don't know any of this stuff. Okay.
Okay. So this is now we didn't go all into, that memory that you shared with the hands behind the back. It seems like there's the father was involved. So that's also disempowerment specifically coming from the male. But also this comes in a very beautiful, positive way in that you know that you are meant to be a healer. So that again, that being so core to you and being present. Yeah, as I was thinking about some of these things, I was like, sometimes I was like, well, that could also be the 10-1, but I'm also picking up the 9-9. And one of the reasons I picked up on the 9-9 is it just felt like, and again, this goes with both of them, like the manifestation of just that your ability to manifest. I'm like thinking about in human design, like, are you a manifester? Because I'm like, these things are just showing up for you. And is that the fours bringing it in? Is that the 10-1 manifesting? Is that the 9-9 in a talent that just whatever you try to do, you make it happen and you do it? I was like, I wasn't always sure where it was coming from. But yeah, that absolutely makes
Yes.
sense. Oh my goodness.
Listen, that 10-1 natural healer, service soul, like I'm here to serve. That's even like before I knew Starlight's chart. I'm like, yeah, that's in there. That's definitely there. You can't be such a strong healer and not have that somewhere in your chart.
Now, there's one that I'm curious to see where this will be because I'm like, it's got to be somewhere. A 12-3, or that ferocious appetite for learning, the forever student, the 3 with the voice and the teacher energy as well. Where is that?
It is in her birth name, physical goals.
I
Right.
love
So
it.
explain that a little bit to Starlight.
Okay. So the 12 is the expansion, complete, total, continuous expansion of love, of knowledge. So we call it the forever student. And just so the way that you just kept talking about everything you were learning over and over again, I was like, yep, that's the 12-3. You absolutely have this 12-3. And I'm interested to know Yana because of her creativity. Obviously, that could be coming from the sixes, from sixes for creativity and artistry, but I could also see that coming through with the 3. So are there sixes in the chart as well?
There are 3 sixes in her common birth name.
Okay.
There is also There is also 4 threes in all the common birth names.
Okay, like a 3-3, or
There's
is it
133, a 21. Oh, okay, a 21-3 and a 12-3.
okay? I was gonna ask. I was like, I didn't put 21-3 on my list, but I was curious to see because I was just picking up so much more the 12-3 energy, but I also wasn't. So I wasn't necessarily being like, I think it's a 21-3, but I'm also not surprised at the same time because of that, again, that inner power and like the forcefulness and that you know what? That's the burning away the separation.
Mhm.
The soul of Solomon coming in, burning away the separation. And that's kind of why that dissolving of the separation is so poignant for you. Is because
It's
of the
so
twenty-one
poignant.
three.
I mean,
Yeah.
so poignant. Like I I was at a vigil this week because of something that happened in my neighborhood with some people that knew this little person, and I saw him perform this week. Anyway, I don't want to go into the details, but while I'm seeing everybody grieving, like I understand the process of dying and death. I understand it on such a different level. I've seen my friends, like spirit, like talking, they've come to me and talked to me while I'm standing around all these people that are crying. This little person came and spoke to me. I didn't see his spirit, but um but he spoke to me, and it's happened to people that are getting surgeries that are my clients, and they're like, I'm looking down at my body. I'm like, I know I'm there with you. And it's like there's no way that we're just this. And I've known that forever. We are not just this body. This is not just our
Yeah.
home, this place here, this house that I'm in, this apartment. It's not just this one lifetime. Like it just keeps proving over and over and over again. I am not crazy, and I never thought that I was crazy, but I always find evidence to back up my questions. And this is such an interesting creative place that I believe even our creativity could create the evidence. Our creativity could possibly manifest and create the evidence. So I'm not exactly sure, because they say thoughts become things, right?
Right.
So it's a really interesting matrix. And how conscious are we of what we're saying, of how we're responding to things? If you go into low dense frequency, you're giving away your power to it. That means that it's eating your energy on some level, not eating it, but utilizing it,
Right.
because it just zapped you of your energy, of your vital life force energy. How important it is to stay grounded and breathing and aware of your heart beating and where that space in you, where peace lives inside you, that nobody can take away from you. It's ours, right? Unless we give it away. And that comes from this. If we go into a
Yeah.
thought, it goes, it's gone.
Yep.
So we haven't really been taught that. And even religions don't necessarily teach that. It's something that comes from inside. And our rites of passages through, throughout this lifetime and others, bring us our toes to these thresholds. And as long as we stay on our path of loving kindness, loving and remember kindness, um, it doesn't mean that we won't be thrown off of our track, right? Because that's how we learn. It's through the contrast, through the weight, the heaviness, the density. It teaches us something so that we can rise again. And we rise and we're like, oh, okay. It's almost like a roller coaster, like being on a magic carpet. Sometimes I feel like I'm on a magic carpet and I'm like, wow, this is so cool. And then sometimes I feel like I'm crawling. So not that one is any better than the other, because it's life, and
Right.
there's value to all of it. And the silver lining technology and hollow bone technology, these are, silver lining, everybody understands that. But when you really get the silver lining, you're free. When you get
Right.
hollow bone technology, when you understand hollow bone, that you can allow things to come towards you and through you versus clinging to it, you're free.
Mhm.
And
Well,
who
that
doesn't want
silver
that?
lining is that 12-3 energy. They rose-colored glasses. So that's that energy too. But you mentioned grounding, and that brings me to two out of the last three that I have on my list here. Of course, the eights. But I mean, I'm sure there's an 8-8, but I would be very surprised if there's not a 17-8 in her chart.
There's not a 17-8, but there are many,
Eights.
many eights and
Okay.
6 eights in her
Wow.
birth name.
Wow. Okay. I really thought the 17-8 because of the speech, like the speaking abilities, but with all the fives, with threes, that's obviously coming in from somewhere else. So yes, very grounded. The clairvoyance, that strong
Hmm.
clairvoyance. I mean, I knew there were eights, but I was thinking 17-8.
Well, I think something too that Starlight didn't get into it, but only because I know Starlight. Part of the eight is it's like you feel different. You're like, I have this thing or I have this knowing, and I know there's more to life. And it's like when you have that eight, it takes a while for you to find that tribe. Like you said, Starlight, where you're like, when I'm feeling this way, like I need to be able to share it with somebody. I need that support. It's like you need community. And the eights, like it takes them a while to find their tribe. But when they do, it's just pure magic.
Hmm.
Well, that's the fives as well. The fives
Mm-hmm.
have that.
Yep.
Now, another number that has to do with grounding. Does she have a 16-7?
Yes. Two of them.
Yes. I love it. I have a 16-7 as well. It is somewhat of a rarer number. But I love this energy, and it's about grounding spiritual energies onto the earth plane. And so like the way that you talk about nectar, I'm like, that's the 16-7 energy. And again, this, there could be 7 sevens as well, but this connecting from the heart space and living from the heart, that's the seven aspect of it. But also I first added it to my list when you mentioned being a rebel, because I don't inherently think of the 16-7 that way, because that's not as much how it shows up in my own life, but that's always the first thing that Yana will ask. So when you mentioned it,
Were you a rebel?
I wrote it down. I wrote it down. I was like 16-7.
Yeah, that has shown up in so many ways. That when it wasn't my turn to do the dishes, I ran away from home. I'm like, it's not fair. I'm out of here. Barefoot, no coat, all the way to my grandparents' house, pretty far away. It's not fair. Yeah, and when I moved to Colombia, South America, it was because I was like, wait a second. I had watched all the Zeitgeist movies, and I'm like, this is not a good place to live. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
There
But then
wasn't any better over there. There's no such thing as a way. That's what I
of
learned there.
course,
There's
of
no such
course.
thing as a way.
And then the positive aspect of that, right? It's that translator energy, somebody who can ground spiritual energy, someone who can explain spiritual philosophies and concepts in such a simple way that a 5-year-old will understand. And Starlight, you totally embody that. And the way you share it and the words you use, it it's like this energy you exude. That's 16-7.
Mm.
Okay, there's one more I want to know. And then actually, I just added something else, which I had notions of, but I wasn't necessarily sure. But when you started talking about something that attached to you, I really started thinking about the 14-5, because I was thinking someone was going to see it, and it was going to reflect, like you were like this, it was going to reflect back or something. But then just actually towards the end of everything that you were sharing about how with this gift it can be challenging as well, I really started to pick up, on maybe some intense relationships, and we didn't really get into that a lot. um but would you say you've had really intense relationships in your life?
I've had starting well, I would say for some reason I'm really attracted to Leos. I love them. They're so amazing. Not that it has to do with astrology, but it just so happens that I've had many relationships with Leos, starting with my dad. And but my dad doesn't seem like a typical Leo based on the other Leos that I've um, danced with, and I call it dance, spend time with, because the whole life is a dance. So depending on the music, it depends on the dance, right? So sometimes it's a slam dance, and sometimes sometimes it's a ballet, and sometimes it's hip hop, and
Mm.
the Charleston. But um, yeah, some of the relationships um, and the family, um, some challenges in the family dynamic, and male female relationships. I remember feeling really comfortable with gay men because I didn't have anything to worry about in their presence. And but I think that was foreshadowing what things I didn't know that happened with my dad yet. And so
Yeah.
once I knew that, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, sorry everybody, I'm sorry, all the men that because you know what, if there's a lesson that we need to know, someone's going to show it to us. And the
Right.
best and greatest teachers are the people we spend the most time with. So is it our colleagues at work? Is it our family members? Is it our children? I don't have any of my own, but my nephews. Is it or my nieces? Is it my husband or my boyfriends? My ex-husband. So um, um, my best friend,
Right.
and then and I also know that because I've had this experience a couple times where I was used. And I knew it at the time the words were coming out of my mouth. I wasn't saying the words. And that person needed to hear it. So, what I understand about Starlight Nectar D'Amour and that name is that that name was already in me.
Mhm.
He's the one who said it, and I heard it. So, I knew it was me. So, he pulled that through for me because of our connection to our hearts. It was such a beautiful,
Mm.
beautiful love, beautiful
Okay.
tenderness.
Well,
Now,
knowing your truth is even more 14.5. So, Yana, where is
okay.
it?
I was hoping you would digress from the 14.5 and go into something else you mentioned, which is that Leo energy and the
The
dragon. So
nines. Yeah.
there's no 14.5, but she's got a bunch of dragons, right?
Hmm.
So that disempowerment, that intense abuse in different ways, right? It's like she she went through it, Starlight, until you stood in your power and you're like, I'm not doing this anymore. That dance is over. So,
It took a long time with one particular individual. It was 11 years.
mm,
And then he still wanted to carry on. And, because I also did research and found that we had many lifetimes together. And this
mm,
particular lifetime, we thought it was to be something and it wasn't. And but it was really interesting. But three of those lifetimes were dragon, I guess, dragon-esque, three of them.
Yeah.
So it
There
came
you
through
go.
this one again. And the
yeah,
previous lifetime to this one, we were actually married. So that is what we were both picking up on, thinking that maybe we were supposed to do that in this lifetime. But which
Wow.
is why it went on for so long because we had this tenderness for each other. Because in one of the first ones, we were brothers, and so we
Hmm.
had this beautiful, loving brother relationship. So, when we meet people, we have no idea what the karma is that we've had with them. One of the healings I did when I was clearing some land in Wisconsin, because someone wanted to put a retreat center on there. And I said, if it's on water, there has been some stuff that has happened on that land. I said, would you like me to come and clear it? And he said, sure. I said, you need to ask the devas if it's okay, the elementals that live on the land where you want to build. And I said, because they live there too, and you can't see them. And he's like, well, I never thought about things like that. And he said, all right, will you come up here? I said, sure, I'll come up there. So the very first thing that I saw while I was drumming and walking on the land, well, not the first thing was a portal, and the portal asked him to visit it every time he was on the property. And anyway, that was very interesting. This next thing I saw, we were right on the edge of the water. It was a river, and I saw two Native American. First of all, my hair always stands up. I'm like, something's here. That's how I can tell, is I feel it in the body. And then I just keep drumming and I look and I look, and then I saw two Native Americans with their hands around each other's necks, and they were strangling each other, and I was crying, my body was shaking, I was still drumming because I was feeling what they were feeling, and I saw their faces change to all the different lifetimes that they had together and the feelings that they had in those lifetimes, and I felt them going through me. And then at the end of all of that, while I'm still drumming and watching it, I heard, okay, Starlight, let it go. And it went up and out of my body because it went through me. That's the hollow bone technology. Went up and out through me. And then the voice, spirit said, please plant, he said, please plant a flowering shrub in honor of these two men because their
mm.
whole existence together entangled was set free.
Oh,
Wow.
beautiful.
Well, speaking of letting it go, leads me to the number that I added at the end, which I had notions of, but it's really when Yana was talking about the 16/7 and the spiritual philosophy, I was like, okay, that just confirmed that she has 11 too.
She does have an 11 too. It's
Yeah.
in her common birth name, but also in her starlight soul destiny.
Yeah. Here to build something and building that structure of truth. The reason that some of the times when I thought maybe I was like, well, she has the 22, and am I just pulling in that, two energy? Like when the wisdom, I was like, absolutely. But yeah, it totally makes sense that you have that as well. Wow. Wow, that's my list, and I have to give myself a pat on the back. I really only got 2.5 wrong, so
No, that was amazing. And Starlight, thank you so much for sharing all of that because you've had an extraordinary life so far, a lot more to go. So we can't wait to continue and see how that keeps unfolding. But it takes it takes a lot to share privately, your life and what it looks like and what you went through. And it's always such a blessing when people actually do that with us. So thank you for allowing that.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes.
I
Now,
know it's a good one.
do you want to tell our listeners where they can find you?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, hello, listeners, and everything that you heard today. Um, may it sit on your tender heart. And if any fear arose within you, know that it can go away as soon as it arises. As long as you remember, is that from my heart? And if it's not from your heart, just let it go. That's my advice for you in
11
anything that
too.
you hear or say or do. Is that from my heart? Is that from my heart? And and then just let it go. It's as easy as that. It actually is. It really is that easy. Okay, so you can find me on Instagram at Starlight D'Amour, StarlightD apostrophe capital AMOUR, but actually I think they're all caps there. That's Starlight D'Amour. Um, you can find me there and leave me a message. There'll be more tidbits by the time you see this, and I hope to meet you someday.
And
But
your
also
website.
my
Yes.
website, right? The website is starlightnectar.com. Starlight, StarLight, Nectar, NECTAR.com.
Now,
Beautiful.
Starlight, do you only work with people in person, or can people work with you remotely if they're not in the Chicago area?
It does not need to be in person. I have a preference to being in person, and I'm sure people would like that. But the energy and the medicine, I call it medicine. The medicine is it transfers time and space, actually, time and space, because you can heal things from past lives now, and
And
it
I'm
doesn't have to
even
be with me.
realizing, we've gotten into your story, but what are the ways people can work with you? What are the services you have available?
Okay, I'm a soul communicator and a transcendence healing artist. And as a transcendence healing artist, I help people transcend fear and limitation, ultimately finding uncensored joy and the experience of uncensored joy in its wake. And that can be done online or in person. And that usually, if we're in person, it takes longer because we actually do other things. Because I
Mhm.
use not only my voice and light language, but we use breath, and I have different noisemakers, instruments. I listen to the soul, and the soul guides me to use everything, and everything that I sense, taste, and smell, see, and hear, I share with the individual, whether it's online or in person. And witnessing the biofield, and that is, I see in now time the body recalibrating from things that are being let go. And that's because I hold a space of neutrality. And in neutrality, everything softens. And when it softens, it can be let go of if it was once dense. And there's no longer a need for it because it's been transmuted already. So the whole purpose of having it was so that you would eventually transmute it. There's the silver lining. So anyway, and then that rolls into sometimes a shamanic guided journey with a drum, and we meet spirit animals, and you get in now time the medicine from the spirit animals, and and the body starts to integrate it before we even start the session. It's as soon as you plan and put it in the books, it starts. The
Wow.
medicine starts. So that's basically how I work now. With I do have women's circles. I encourage women in groups of 4 to come either online or gather together and start to learn these ways so that you can bring it into your community and raise your children to understand these thought constructs and living through the heart. And it takes women supporting women and then bringing it to their families and their communities in order for it to spread. And it's time now. It's just a reactivation. It's already in us. It's just giving ourselves permission and saying yes to understanding and being in balance with the inner world and the outer world. I also do yoni steams, which is in person. It's called Yoni Free. And I basically work with women that have, whether it's this lifetime or past lives, have had trauma to the physical body, but mostly intimate trauma, and get that cleared. And that is another thing that as soon as you clear it, your whole lineage is cleared because it came to you for right now. Your whole lineage.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow.
And there's more, but I'll leave it at that for now.
Magical and gifted. That's what Yana has always said about you. And wow, can I totally see and understand why. Thank you again so much for joining us today. This has been so incredible.
Our
So
lives are a gift, and
incredible.
ladies, you have brought this gift to more people than you know.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
thank you, everybody. As always, go ahead and head over to Instagram, Let's Talk Vibes podcast. Let us know what you thought of this most recent episode. And of course, head over to our website, theltvpodcast.com. Especially if you want to know what numbers are in your birth chart, you can go ahead and request a chart there.
Yes. And as always, everybody, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment on all our content wherever you're listening or watching. It is the best way to support us, and we appreciate it. Thank you so much, and have a blessed day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.